The modernization of the Argentine Army has become one of the most pressing defense issues in South America. For decades, the land forces of Argentina have relied on a fleet of armored vehicles that are rapidly approaching obsolescence, including half-tracks dating back to World War II and worn-out M113 personnel carriers. This technological stagnation has created a critical operational gap in the Southern Cone, prompting the urgent launch of the VCBR program, which stands for Wheeled Armored Combat Vehicle. This procurement project is not merely a transaction of military hardware, but a decisive geopolitical contest that pits regional integration against extracontinental influence. The two primary contenders for this contract are the Brazilian-made VBTP-MR Guaraní and the Chinese-manufactured Norinco VN-1. While the Chinese offer presents significant firepower on paper, a deep analysis of logistics, geopolitics, and industrial economics suggests that the Brazilian option offers a superior strategic outcome for both Buenos Aires and Brasilia. The contest involves two distinct design philosophies. On one side stands the Norinco VN-1, an 8x8 infantry fighting vehicle that boasts heavy armor and a 30mm cannon as standard equipment. This platform represents the aggressive expansion of the Chinese defense industry into Latin America, offering high specifications at competitive prices, often backed by aggressive state financing. On the other side is the VBTP-MR Guaraní, a 6x6 amphibious armored personnel carrier developed by Iveco Defense Vehicles in partnership with the Brazilian Army. While the VN-1 may appear to have a numerical advantage in terms of raw firepower and wheel configuration, such a comparison ignores the realities of operating military equipment in the South American environment. The most compelling argument for the Guaraní lies in the realm of logistics and sustainment, which are the true determinants of military effectiveness. A military vehicle is only as useful as its supply chain. In this regard, the Brazilian platform holds a decisive advantage that its Chinese competitor cannot match. The Guaraní is powered by the Iveco Cursor 9 engine. Crucially, this engine is not just a Brazilian import, but is manufactured at the Iveco plant in Córdoba, Argentina. This industrial overlap transforms the acquisition of the Guaraní from a simple import into a program of industrial cooperation. If an Argentine Guaraní suffers an engine failure in the field, the replacement parts are already within the country, available through a commercial supply chain that supports civilian trucks. The technical expertise required to repair the powertrain already exists within the Argentine workforce. In stark contrast, the adoption of the Chinese VN-1 would introduce a logistical nightmare for the Argentine Army. The supply chain for Norinco replacement parts stretches across the Pacific Ocean, introducing lead times that can span months. In a conflict scenario or a crisis requiring rapid deployment, relying on a supply line that originates in East Asia is a strategic vulnerability. Furthermore, the Chinese platform utilizes proprietary standards that are incompatible with the existing infrastructure of the Argentine military and its neighbors. The adoption of the VN-1 would require the creation of a parallel logistical system, necessitating new tools, new training for mechanics, and the stockpiling of unique spare parts. For a nation facing severe economic constraints like Argentina, the hidden costs of maintaining a Chinese fleet over 30 years would likely exceed any initial savings on the purchase price. Beyond the nuts and bolts of maintenance, the political landscape of 2024 and 2025 has shifted dramatically in favor of the Brazilian option. The administration of President Javier Milei has initiated a profound realignment of Argentine foreign policy, moving away from the BRICS bloc and steering the nation firmly toward the United States and Western allies. This pivot was underscored by the decision to purchase used F-16 fighter jets from Denmark, effectively rejecting the Chinese JF-17 Thunder. In this context, the procurement of a primary ground combat vehicle must be viewed through the lens of interoperability. The Guaraní is designed with Western standards in mind, featuring communication and battle management systems that are compatible with NATO protocols. By choosing the Brazilian vehicle, Argentina ensures that its army can seamlessly operate alongside the Brazilian Army and other Western partners in joint exercises, peacekeeping missions, or regional security operations. A fleet of Chinese VN-1s would act as a digital and mechanical wall, isolating the Argentine Army from its neighbors and creating a technological island that hinders cooperation. The geopolitical signal sent by purchasing Chinese armor would also complicate relations with Washington, potentially jeopardizing access to other Western military technologies such as the weaponry for the newly acquired F-16s. However, the decision is not solely political, it is intensely economic. The primary obstacle to the Guaraní deal has historically been the lack of financing. Argentina suffers from a chronic shortage of foreign currency reserves, making direct cash purchases impossible. This reality places the burden on Brazil to structure a viable financial package. The Brazilian National Bank for Economic and Social Development, known as BNDES, plays a central role here. Critics in Brazil often question the wisdom of using taxpayer funds to finance exports to a neighbor with a volatile economy. Yet, this perspective misses the broader strategic dividend. Financing the export of 156 or more Guaraní vehicles is an investment in the Brazilian defense industrial base. It guarantees production lines at the Iveco plant in Sete Lagoas remain active for years, preserving high-tech jobs and economies of scale that lower the unit cost for the Brazilian army itself. For Argentina, the economic argument for the Guaraní is equally persuasive when viewed through the lens of domestic labor. Because the engine, suspension components, and chassis parts have manufacturing roots in the binational automotive ecosystem, a significant portion of the money Argentina spends on the Guaraní would effectively circulate back into its own economy. Purchasing the Norinco VN-1 would result in a net outflow of hard currency to Beijing, creating zero jobs in Córdoba or Buenos Aires. In an era of economic austerity, the Argentine government must justify defense spending to its public. It is far easier to justify a purchase that supports the local automotive industry than one that subsidizes factories in Inner Mongolia. The operational suitability of the 6x6 configuration versus the 8x8 configuration also merits objective analysis regarding the terrain. While 8x8 vehicles offer lower ground pressure and greater trench crossing capabilities, they are significantly heavier, more expensive to maintain, and consume more fuel. The geography of operation for the Argentine Army includes the vast plains of the Pampas, the urban centers, and the rugged terrain of Patagonia. The lighter, more agile 6x6 Guaraní is better optimized for strategic mobility across existing bridges and road networks in South America. Its lower fuel consumption reduces the logistical tail required to keep a mechanized battalion moving, a critical factor for an army with limited support trucks. Furthermore, the Guaraní has already been combat tested in security operations within Brazil and deployed in peacekeeping missions, providing a verified reliability record that the specific export version of the VN-1 lacks in this specific environment. Ultimately, the choice between the Guaraní and the VN-1 defines the future of South American defense integration. If Argentina selects the Chinese option, it opens the door for Beijing to establish a permanent military foothold in the Southern Cone, complete with advisors, technicians, and a dependency on Chinese support that could be leveraged for political concessions. If Argentina selects the Guaraní, it solidifies the strategic alliance with Brazil, creating a standardized block of armor that enhances the collective security of Mercosur. The iron handshake offered by the Guaraní deal represents a pragmatic path forward. It respects the economic limitations of Buenos Aires while fulfilling the strategic ambitions of Brasilia. The technical specifications of the cannon or the thickness of the armor plate are secondary to the reality of the map. Geography dictates destiny. Brazil and Argentina are neighbors, bound by a common border and integrated industries. The Guaraní is the physical embodiment of that reality. It represents a solution where the engine is built on one side of the border and the hull on the other, creating a system that is resilient, sustainable, and politically sound. The Norinco VN-1 serves only the interests of a distant power-seeking leverage. Therefore, for the sake of logistical sanity, economic prudence, and regional stability, the 6x6 from Set Lagoas is the only logical successor to the aging fleet of the Argentine Army.